Hi everyone, it's Margaret here, 60 and Me. I want to thank you so much for being here. I just got back from my little trip to Greece and I wanted to do a quick video to give you an update on things that I learned. I've cruised before and this wasn't a sponsored trip. It was something that I chose to do on my own as kind of a reconnaissance for She Cruises to see whether or not a Greek cruise with them might be appropriate for our community. And I learned a lot about myself and also about cruising. And I was a bit surprised, and I want to share with you some of those things that I learned. I've done a separate video for She Cruises because I wanted it to be more specific about Celestial line because a lot of people don't know about it. It's a Greek line, but I'm going to just share a bit more of the personal stuff about things I learned along the way. By the way, I just did a makeup video with Isadora products that I picked up I didn't pick them up, but I found them on my travels, and they're really cool products. But I've got this eyeshadow on that's like a really dark green, and it was like an autumn look. And so I've got over makeup here today, but anyway, I can trust you with it. So the trip itself, let's say Celestial is a Greek line. They only have two ships, Crystal Olympia, which is I was on, and the Crystal. So it's Greek speaking, Greek run, and I thought that would be a great way to travel. It's affordable. It's very, very inexpensive. As a single traveler, you pay double with single supplements. So I could afford this, and I had an inside room, so I was really budget conscious. It's all inclusive, and you get all the drinks. Everything is included, and you visit in 5 days, 4 days really, 4 nights, I think 5 places. And so it's very fast moving and super well organized. So let me just say that, first of all, I'm like a really positive person, right? So everything for me is through that lens of positivity. I'm not picky about things. I don't, find fault with things. I really say, hey, I'm getting this for a reasonable amount of money. I'm in an inside cabin. It's an old ship. It's not going to be perfect. And so with that lens, I'm going to tell you my experience. You may go on the Celestial Olympia and say, there's cracks, it's a little dirty, the food isn't 5-star. I don't want to endorse it in the sense that it's perfect, because it's not. But it is inexpensive, and it's well run. I mean, to be honest with you, the shore excursions, one of them involved, two involved tenders, where you had to get off the ship onto a smaller ship and then go into the town or the island. It was pretty good. It was flawless. I mean, there were 1,600 people on the ship. So you can imagine how slow some things were, but it moved pretty fast. So that was a good thing. But what did I learn? Well, I learned that the Greek islands are just beautiful. They're just fantastic. I mean, I love that part of the world. Greek people are lovely. I stayed in Piraeus for 2 nights in a bed and breakfast before getting on the ship. Just lovely people. I felt always comfortable. The sunsets were the same after 40 years. I was there 40 years ago. When I got to Santorini, I remembered going on a donkey up the mountain to get to the town, which is at the top of the island. And now it's a zigzag asphalt road with hundreds of buses. I mean, not hundreds, but tens of buses. And, I remember going on by a donkey. But when I got to the top and I got to Santorini, by the way, I bought this necklace there. I just love this necklace. It's just like the other one I have, which is like more shiny, but this is like a matte. It's a matte version, but 12 euros. And that's a whole other story I should write about. But when I got to the top, I got a picture taken with the sunset. It was the same sunset. Like, nature didn't change. I mean, yes, there were more people. It was super crowded. But I was just happy to be there. I really was just happy to be there. And that was another thing that I learned, is that Greece has changed. I mean, the season goes from April till end of October, November, and it's packed. Mykonos was so crowded. You literally couldn't get a picture of the windmill. The sunset was amazing. So that was something I learned. The other thing I learned was that an inside cabin's okay. you actually can manage just fine in an inside cabin. I always decorate mine with postcards and pictures of family. I have all my pictures with me, and it didn't matter. I was hardly there. And my little person that did the cleaning, he would leave me little folded towels and different designs, like animals, and it was great. I mean, the inside was good. But the most important thing I wanted to share with you was the idea of traveling solo. And, I'm a solo traveler. I've always traveled solo for my whole life. In fact, it was really funny, and I don't have them with me, but I just realized that I'd written journals during that time, and I have them here that I was going to throw away at some point, but it was like my memories of these places. I've always traveled solo, and I don't mind it. But now I realized that women, especially older women, like to travel in tribes. I think I was probably one of the few women, who was sitting alone on the bus, like literally with no one that I knew to start with. People will sit down later, but I was sitting by myself at dinner. Everybody else was in groups. So even though women were traveling solo, they'd come from Kansas and some from Missouri and some from Detroit and some from Singapore. They were all in groups. And that group of 50 or so had met online before the cruise. And they'd had dinner the night before, and they'd got together. And by the time they got to the cruise, they knew each other. So it made me realize how wonderful I feel about starting She Cruises, which is our sister site to 60andMe, and is going to offer cruises for women in groups. Because even if you want to travel solo and you like that experience of not just showing up if you didn't want to, like just staying in the cabin or whatever, you were part of a group. And so my little card today is keep curious, where's my Find My Tribe? Here's Find My Tribe, my inspirational card. But anyway, so I felt like I was really happy that I started She Cruises. And we've got our first cruise. Many of you who are listening to this are going on it, 60 people. And I'm organizing a trip to Bali later in the year. These I think are valuable, because traveling solo when you're 21, 20, 30, even 40 is different than traveling solo when you're 60 or 70, in my opinion. Maybe for you have no problems, but for me, I felt a little lonely. That's the truth. I really did feel a little bit lonely. And even though there were some really lovely ladies from Kansas who welcomed me to their group, and I hung out with them on some of the shore excursions, I felt pretty much on my own all the time. So that was I didn't expect that. Like, I just thought I'd always, and then the final thing that goes along with that is I felt some physical limitations. I mean, I'm pretty strong and healthy, and I took good shoes, and I was okay, but the ground was slippery in Athens, like marble slippery, and on some of the islands, Rhodes, for example, which was spectacular. I loved Rhodes. It was, very pebbly and slippery in the old town. So those were some of the things I realized as I did this trip, that it's okay to be alone, but a group is, I think, going to be the way I'm going to go forward in the future. And because I've got She Cruises now, I will do that. Also, just knowing my physical limitations, it was a good thing. It was humbling. There were a couple of things about Celestial, by the way, that were not good. Like, they didn't wipe the rails to go down from one level to the other. I mean, when I've been on other cruise lines, I won't make any comparisons, but they're out there every day polishing those rails, and there's hand disinfectant, hand sanitizer everywhere. They only had it outside the restaurant. They just didn't take cleanliness of the public spaces the floors and everything else the deck was spotless. But anyway, just one of those little things that I noticed. I left them a note on it. It was something I felt strongly about. But anyway, as you probably know now, I've done the video of Athens, a day trip. I've done a video of the whole experience, and I just published that. And I've also done the round the ship, the walkthrough. So, as I said before, this wasn't a sponsored trip. I just did it myself. I paid for it myself, and it was a big investment for me. I don't do it very often, but I wanted to make sure before I recommended Celestial that I had gone on a trip for She Cruises. So stay tuned for that. I think I'm going to check out the Crystal, which is a newer ship, and they do a little bit longer cruise, a 7-day. as opposed to 5. But more of that to come. Anyway, I'd love your feedback on any cruises that you've done and this whole experience of being alone and the physical limitations as you get a little bit older. I know this has been a long video. I don't normally leave them quite this long, but it was just something I thought was worth sharing.